Well, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to first thank all the leaders of FourKites for inviting us here, my team, myself, to actually give this presentation. We have a very long and extensive relationship with FourKites, starting back in 2019. One of the funny things is I started Niagara in 2019 in about April. And so around May to September timeframe, we were in discussions with FourKites to bring on this platform. So this is kind of one of my first projects that I was able to be a part of and help understand. So today, I'm gonna talk to you guys about Connect, Optimize, and Grow, Niagara Bottling's secrets to success with FourKites. As I get started, I do wanna tell you just a little bit about Niagara. Niagara is actually a company, a lot of people don't know who we are, but we are a privately held, private label bottled water company. So we are the largest privately held bottled water company in the United States. So you guys may not see our names often around, but you will know us from the likes of the big box stores, going to those locations. You'll see the private labels there, and we actually produce that for them. So I'm gonna start off by talking about why visibility matters. So we've been talking about visibility all day. So why does it matter to Niagara? So we are all of the new age of wanting to make sure we have real-time information for our shipments. So that's very simple. We want to use this information to share with our customers and various stakeholders to enhance transparency and accountability. The critical thing for this is when we first went down this path, we didn't actually know exactly what that looked like, but we knew that historically we did not have this level of visibility, and we wanted to grow into that. So let's talk about the two different stages and two different areas by which we came from. So historically, we had EDI, latent data, so all old data coming through, very, very slow response times, and ultimately frustrated customers and frustrated stakeholders. So in this area, we were very reactive. Now we want to be automated, streamlined, have data in real time, and be connected through the cloud. Overall, we know this is a more proactive approach. So as I talk through my presentation today, you're gonna hear me talk a lot about the reactive methodologies and about the proactive methodologies. As we all wanna be more proactive, we know that that comes only with better data in real time. So the next thing we had to do is really understand what business objectives we want to go after. So as we look at those business objectives, there are a few critical points that we want to cover first. One of the first ones is a single visibility platform. So while we all love having an abundance of apps on our phone, especially all those fun social media ones, right? It's very critical that we have something that combines all the information in one place. One of the issues that you can come across by having multiple platforms trying to deliver the same data is the fact that the data is actually not the same. So you may have one piece of data in your WMS, one piece of data in your TMS, and one piece of data in an Excel spreadsheet, and none of them are the same. So it's very critical as we work down this path with FourKites to have a single visibility platform so that we can so data can be less cumbersome and more efficient. The next thing with any of this, and we always talk about this, is a business objective is going to be to improve service. At Niagara, we're in a business where most of our customers have less than 1 to 2 days of inventory on hand. So we need a system that can help us make sure that we're on date, in full, on time every day. And it's very critical for us for any project that we work towards improving service. To be transparent, we did not understand exactly how this was going to help us do it, but we knew that having that real-time data was going to help us get better service than we had before. One of the most important aspects, as I mentioned earlier, is proactive exception management. It's a major differentiating factor from being on time, early, or late. It's very critical when we look at the entire supply chain that you factor in all of those components. Quite often, we just think about being late. Okay, you're late, that's a problem, that's bad. But sometimes being too early could be a problem too, especially for the receiver who's not ready to accept your load, and for the driver who now has to wait. And again, those unproductive hours that Matt talked about earlier just keep adding up and adding up when drivers are waiting. The next business objective that we wanted to make sure that we really dove into was having data that's timely, accurate, and overall complete. This is one of the most struggling parts that we have with the entire data set that we have. As we mentioned, we have tons of data, but the question is it accurate? If it's not accurate, you pretty much can't do anything with it, because it would ring false alarms, having you reach out to carriers when they really weren't late, having you respond to consignees when other issues were happening. And really, that's why you want to make sure that the timeliness, accuracy, and completeness of the data is exactly where you want it to be. Another thing that we didn't know that we wanted, but after talking to FourKites, we actually realized was a very critical and very important portion of what things we could get from the tool, is having insights not only on our carriers, because as we mentioned all the time, carriers are always the problem. It's the carrier being late. But we wanted to understand why were they late. And quite often what we would have is debates amongst our carriers, and they're saying, hey, we got held up at our previous stop, or we got held up by your customer. And so the great thing about one of the business objectives that this platform brought to us is deeper insights into consignee behaviors. So we knew exactly, we were learning exactly where those tough points were with specific customers on unload times, et cetera. And what we could do with that data is, after the fact, we can go to our carriers, our customers, and say, hey, if you help us improve on dwell time at your facilities, not only is it going to help us reduce costs from Niagara's perspective, it's going to help us reduce the cost that we charge you for your goods to be delivered. And last but not least in this particular piece is around increasing automation and efficiency. So obviously, with increasing automation and efficiency, it helps the overall process by which you have less manual touches, more automated touches, and you move away from those latent systems and those prior behaviors. As with any project, though, you're going to have to deliver financials. So what financials can you deliver? And so we had three major components that we wanted to go after as we approached this. The first one is to be, and all of these are going to be to reduce or avoid RMAs, so return merchandise authorizations. So what would happen is, if we were to deliver to a customer late, or we did not deliver on the right date, we could get an RMA. And our company would have to eat that entire cost of that driver coming back to our facility. And it's multiple components of cost involved in that. You understand the freight component, but it's also the offloading of that. We in Niagara have a very automated process of loading trucks. However, when we have to unload the trucks, it has to be manual. And we don't always have the staffing or labor to do that. And if we do have to staff for that, we become less productive. The next critical piece is around spot freight. So you're wondering, what do I mean by spot freight? As I mentioned, we have a very tight supply chain. So most of our customers are either just in time, we do direct to store for a lot of our customers. And so when we don't hit the delivery window, or we don't hit the exact time, it doesn't mean we can just cancel that load or automatically move it to the next day. What we may have to do is pull the load from that particular carrier and reassign it to another carrier on the spot market. And as all of you guys know, same-day spot freight is going to be much more expensive than your normal contracted freight. And last but certainly not least, customer fines. So customers don't just give us a pass all the time when we're late. And so they have really restrictive methods of how they incorporate those fines and fees, and we must make sure we adhere to those. Next, I'm going to give you guys an example of how we have historically been on the reactive side. Then I'm going to show you how FourKites has helped us become more proactive. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into this piece. Historically, we would tender a load to a carrier and start our exception management at the time of the pickup appointment. Our operations team had no visibility to what happens in between the time we tender the load and the time the truck shows up at our dock. So with this, there was no opportunity to collaborate with the carriers on the missed loads or delays, which put us ultimately behind in our ability to communicate those failures or delays to our customers. To better illustrate this, let's use the simple example. Let's say I have a pickup at noon and a delivery appointment at 5 p.m. If a truck doesn't show up or then misses its appointment, the earliest Niagara finds out about it is at noon, and then we start their rescheduling process. To put this in perspective, historically in 2019, we had 20,000 instances of this happening, where we will immediately take a service hit from the supplier. We are subject to fines from many of our customers as we lost sales. This could also create warehouse space issues because that same truck did get picked up and you're still producing off the line, as well as other issues, so on and so forth. And in some cases, the truck still would show up, although very late. We would mistakenly load it, and then we would get to the consignee to only be turned around, costing us a costly RMA. So I guess you guys can see how this reactive approach, which we had for many years, could be troubling to our organization. So now let's look at the proactive approach. So now let's look to start tracking the loads with FourKites before the shipment's even picked up. Typically for our shipments, it's anywhere between 4 and 6 hours before the pickup time, we will start tracking that shipment. And so what this does is allows us to collaborate with the carrier to reduce service failures by having a recovery period between, in this example, 6 a.m. and noon, so that if we needed to get a different appointment time on our own docks, if we needed to prioritize at the customer, we still had time to do that to avoid a service hit and to ultimately not incur those fines, fees, RMA costs, other freight-related costs that I mentioned. So this is what we're doing today. So we went from reactive to proactive. But this was no easy task, and it was a very long journey. So first, it took us some time to get to where we are, and one of the most important things is getting buy-in from the internal teams. Most people on the stage today talked about the C-suite, and the C-suite is very important. These are the guys and gals that cut the checks, so we understand that. But what we understood at the same time is that we had a team members that were very used to doing the process the old school way. Give me the Excel sheet, let me download it from OTM, I copy and paste, I may call a carrier or two, I might send an email. I've been doing this, Mike, for 10 years. Why are you coming in, new guy, and trying to change the way that we do this process? So it's very important not only to get that buy-in from your C-suite to understand exactly why and work on some ROIs, it's very important to get it from the ground level as well. Because in a company like Niagara, we're becoming very large, but we're also a family-driven company, we don't want to have any instances where our hourly employees just start complaining about something that's new because we didn't properly explain it to them. In addition, we wanted to make sure that, again, we had an ROI for this project, and to believe it or not, guys, we had one major customer. Actually, it wasn't even a big customer eyes, but it's a customer that fined us the most, that helped us get out of this get this situation across the finish line. This customer, I'll tell you a little bit about them. They had one of our most inconsistent delivery appointment availability windows, and anytime we were late and we did not notify them, they would fine us $500 each instance. So this customer did that, and it was served as a profit center for them. But if we could notify them within an hour before we actually missed the arrival appointment, we can avoid the fine. So working with FourKites, we were able to make sure that these shipments were tracked and these shipments were avoided. So again, that was part of the initial go forward with that. The next piece I want to talk about is carrier adoption. Carrier adoption and onboarding was and is by far the most challenging problems to overcome because some people are just afraid of data sharing. I remember we were having conversations with some of the carriers. They thought FourKites was going to become a broker. So we had to convince them that FourKites wasn't going to become a broker. And fortunately, FourKites, to my understanding, still is not. But really sharing that data and having them understand exactly what we're going to do with it. And guys, to be transparent, outside of our first couple initial business cases, we didn't really know exactly what we're going to do with all that data. We just know we needed it. We knew we had some business cases identified, but that we were going to grow and do more over time. So that's going to be your biggest hurdle for anybody that's new to this platform, that's new, is really getting that carrier adoption and onboarding. And last but not least, really establishing a real-time solutions team. I'm going to talk about that in the next coming slides, but really you have all this data now. What are you going to do with it? And so we knew that just having this data and having a few processes in place weren't going to be enough to really let us exploit the opportunities with this platform. We created the real-time solutions team. And the real-time solutions team core purpose was to provide the proactive nature team, be the proactive team that ultimately implemented and utilized this data. So it consists of 30 team members. It was combining customer service and our logistics team. And they were really going to help us serve in the following ways. We were going to save the customer want date. We were going to reduce spot costs, avoid layovers, avoid customer fines and fees, avoid RMAs, help reduce detention time. So this is what this team was comprised of, and this is what this team was working to do. Really, when you look at this, the critical piece about creating this team is building those processes so that they understand how to utilize that data to avoid these things. And for that, you want to create a process of measuring the team as well. So we had a weekly meeting with our teams, with our RTS or real-time solution supervisors, about communication and overall process improvements. Out the gate, what we did was created SOPs, but we knew every week and every time we were going to modify those a little bit. Sometimes they were spot on, other times we had to make different modifications, but we knew that just with the supervisors that wasn't good enough. So on a weekly and monthly basis on our management routine process, we had meetings with the managers and our directors to have overall updates. And on top of this, guys, what I really encourage you to do is make a game out of it. So we had what we call wins. So what a win is that if you avoid one of those cost factors that I mentioned on the prior slide, that's a win in your belt. And we created targets and we made a game out of it for our team members so that they knew exactly what goals they were stretching for, and we could deliver on the overall financial results that the company was looking for. So then, as we moved into 2021 and 2022, we really started to hit our stride. So one of the things that we were able to do is fully launch tracking automation. So what we did there is that we had a process historically with a few of our carriers where we would actually update Google Doc sheets with all of their shipment statuses every day for every single load. And we would do that by any means necessary, using EDI, using humming pigeons and birds, anything, you name it, we were using it to actually get this data back to our customers so they can look at it and say, okay, thank you, appreciate the status update. But what we're able to utilize FourKites with is we were able to integrate with them utilizing their data to automatically populate these sheets so that we no longer had to use that same manpower to get that work done. We also achieved our consistency goal. It's now called SuperTrack, but historically it was called Tracking with Consistency. So we were able to reach the goal we set forth internally in our organization to make sure not only that we had data, again, because we were tracking totally at a very high percentage, but we wanted to make sure that we were tracking with consistency as well. And what we were able to do is work with our carriers to incorporate into their contracts quality tracking SLAs. So if they did not hit certain benchmarks or thresholds, there were contractual language to help them get there. So what I want to finish off with, guys, is also to talk about the appointment manager tool. So the appointment manager tool, we're very, very early on in its implementation at Niagara. We're still piloting some of the methodology, but I want to spend this time to thank FourKites. They have implemented over 15 enhancements that we asked for just to get it off the ground to be able to utilize our platform. Because for Niagara, we had an OTM solution that we were historically using. It was about 10 years old that didn't allow us to do a lot of the capabilities that the doc management or the appointment management tool today allows us to do. Again, all the cool functionality, the auto scheduling, the capabilities of carriers and customers to be able to go into your platform and schedule appointments is something that's very unique and something that we're just getting into right now at Niagara. And we hope that over the next year, as we continue to grow and continue to hit more of our strides, we will not only use Appointment Manager, but we are a company that's open to all the platforms that are brought forth by Niagara. But if I had to give you guys any advice, it would be to learn what your teams do today, try to incorporate those things into the new processes and new data that's to come, and embrace all the opportunities that FourKites brings along. Thank you, guys.